Hello, this is Fear Dragon, and welcome to Breaking Out, the show about North American StarCraft 2 players. Here on this show, we take a look at an up-and-coming North American talent. Each week, we check out a new player to get a feel for their personality and their playstyle. On Thursday, we interview the player to find out more about who they are and why you should care about them. On Friday, we watch 3 of their games as we cover their playstyle in each of the 3 matchups. Saturday, we take a look at an awesome game they played and relax with a little bit of fun as we recap the week and get an analysis of the games. Breaking Out will cover 8 players before it culminates into the Breakout Invitational. With a minimum prize pool of $1,000, we find out who is the most likely player to break out of the North American scene. But enough of that. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. Hope you guys enjoy the show. Hello, this is Fear Dragon, and welcome to Breaking Out, the show by North American StarCraft 2 players that you need to know about. Today on the show, we are jumping into the awesome day, the final awesome day for Breaking Out Season number 2. With, of course, our highlight player of the week. We are going to introduce the players before that, though, as we jump in and introduce the player in the bottom right-hand corner first, spawning as the red Terran player representing Team Complexity. It is the badass Terran player himself, Coma! And his opponent spawning up here in the top left-hand corner of the map as the blue Protoss player, the highlight player of the week, representing Prometheus Gaming. It is Prometheus Gaming's NaYa. And it is, again, the final week, the final day of Breaking Out Season number 2. Man, has time flown. We have seen some really great players play throughout the weeks, the 8 weeks that we have been doing this. But now it's starting to come to an end, and we get to see the awesome stuff happen on today's day. We get to see the awesome game, we get to see some awesome analysis, we get to see the awesome arcade match, and then we get to hear a little bit of an awesome announcement about the Breakout Invitational that happens at the end of the season. So I'm looking forward to that. I hope that you guys are as well. We're going to start off again with the awesome game. It's going to be a Protoss versus Terran, and again, it's going to have 2 really great players, 2 great North American players, and this is honestly one of my favorite matchups right now. NaYa has actually kind of indicated that, you know, this is not his favorite matchup right now. Well, actually, he said that he actually really likes the matchup, but he has not been a huge fan of the matchup ever since the Widowmine change that has really made the additional damage to shields on those Widowmines has made it very difficult for Protoss players to open up Templar tech or with a lot of Charge Zealots or Archons, etc. So it's made it a lot easier for Terran players to really feel much more comfortable, especially ever since they've been complaining about all the Blink Stalker all-ins, etc. It looks like for now, we are seeing a very fast tech up to Factory from Coma. Now, this is kind of interesting. I'm really wondering what exactly he's going to be planning to do right now, because normally you do end up seeing, you know, maybe you'll see a Reaper come out or something, but immediately following that up, you have a command center or something being thrown down. But instead, we're seeing a pretty fast tech up again from Coma. How exactly is NaYa going to respond, considering the fact that he literally is not scouting? He's actually not even going to scout after throwing down that Nexus. He's just going to be saying, you know what, I want the maximum economy possible. And he's actually just kind of chrono boosting out the Mothership Core for now. Ooh, a little bit of miscontrol over there from NaYa. Ends up rallying all of his probes over to the 1 mineral pack. But you know that does kind of happen sometimes, especially when you're sort of getting out of those early game jitters. That's a lot of the reason why some people like to spam some of their APM nice and early on to kind of warm up their hands, make sure they don't make mistakes like that. But Starport now going up, so it looks like with the first Hellion going to be produced in Coma, it looks like this could very well be some sort of fast Hellion drop. He doesn't have a second gas geyser, so I don't think that this is going to be any kind of Banshee play. And I think that, yeah, it's just going to be probably a medevac coming out, and he's going to try and drop maybe 2 Hellions or 3 Hellions with maybe even 2 or 3 Marines and see how much damage he can do while he tries to expand behind it, I imagine. But who knows? We're going to have to wait and see, as the robotic facility is going to be coming out for NaYa. NaYa going up for that 1 gateway robotic facility tech after that Nexus, and if NaYa decides to go for that sort of greedy style that a lot of Protoss players have been doing lately, where they go for a robotics bay on 1 gateway and 1 robotic facility that just goes straight up to Colossus, then he could be in a lot of trouble because he's just not going to have enough units to actually deal with this with the Hellions that could be coming out for his opponent Coma. Now, the thing is, NaYa is up on workers by a good amount. Like, I mean, a pretty substantial amount. He's producing 2 workers at a time still. He's up to 28 workers to 20 SCVs. Yeah, there are mules, or I should say mule. There's only 1 mule really out on the map right now for Coma, because he only has 1 orbital command. So NaYa can afford to lose a couple of SCV or probes and still be in a great position. But he wants to make sure that he keeps at least a good chunk of them alive, because you have to remember that Coma has also gotten he's gotten up all of his tech, basically, in terms of like that early mid-game tech. He's gotten up his Stargate and everything. And in the meanwhile, NaYa has really been investing a lot of his early game into his economy, getting up as many probes as possible. And he needs to make sure he keeps that advantage alive. But, oh, we end up seeing the drop coming in over here. Oh, the Observer, he's going to actually scout it out at the absolute last second. The Mothership Core does have enough energy for a Photon Overcharge. He's going to be able to lay that down soon. But it looks like the Pylon Power in the Forge is going to probably get taken out. Oh, it looks like the Medevac gets focused right down. All of these Marines are completely trapped over here. Oh, a really nice pickoff for NaYa. And actually, the Hellions going to be coming in at the same time down on the low ground. It looks like so far they managed to kill off 5 workers before they are chased back. The Marines not really able to do a whole lot because the Mothership Core's Photon Overcharge is still running strong, and that is going to be very, very annoying for Coma to try and deal with. He's not going to be able to really do, again, a whole lot, but these 2 SCV, or sorry, the 3 Stalkers should be able to poke away at these Marines, and you know what, they can always retreat back to the safety of that Photon Overcharge. And it looks like with some nice micro, actually, NaYa is going to be able to take out all of those Marines, barely taking any real damage on those Stalkers, really well controlled by him. And Coma gonna have to back up. He has his orbital or command center finish up over the natural expansion. Gonna be making that into an orbital command, getting down those mules. But again, he is down a good 10 SCVs and still is not really even able to make 2 SCVs at a time, because again, he's trying to make that orbital command for now. So he's gonna be falling even a little bit further behind. Yeah, Terran players have mules, so it's not a big deal, but still, it's a nice little advantage that NaYa gonna have to be up a decent number of those workers. And of course, is going to be able to safely now say, well, I killed off a full medevac. I killed off a medevac with 8 Marines, and I killed off 4 Hellions. There's not that much more that my opponent could really have right now. Well, he killed off at least one of the Hellions and weakened up the rest of them. I guess the Hellions did, for the most part, survive. But still, NaYa knows that there's not going to be a huge amount of aggression coming in for a little bit, so he can get up that robotics bay. He can start to get up that tech and say, well, I'm getting up my +1 armor, I can get out my first Colossus, and once that first Colossus comes out and he has those 2 extra gateways finishing up, NaYa is going to be feeling to be in a much better position, a much more comfortable position where he doesn't have to really worry about immediately dying, because he's going to have those power units, the Colossus out, which really allow him to survive a lot of that early game aggression. Even kind of pushes out with drops can be much, much less effective with even just a single Colossus out and a couple of gateway units. It really doesn't take a whole lot to ward off that kind of Terran aggression. But Hellion drop going to be coming out from Coma. Now, again, NaYa has the units to prepare for it, but is he going to have them positioned in the right location? It looks like the first Colossus is about to be popping out as it does go ahead and rally itself over to the low ground. NaYa doesn't actually have anything prepared in the main base. He does have a pylon or 2 just kind of going up. He could maybe flank down Photon Overcharge, as he does have enough energy for it. But again, Photon Overcharge, it does nice damage and it'll ward off units. But Hellions actually have a pretty decent amount of health, and I really like what Coma did, where he repaired up those Hellions, made sure that he get the absolute maximum value from them. And it looks like that pylon from NaYa going to be scouting out those Hellions very, very quickly. Oh, NaYa tries to go for maybe a little bit of a wall-in with those Stalkers warping in, but isn't quite able to get it. But immediately focus fires down the medevac once again. He is making sure that no matter what, Coma is going to be trading Hellions, or at least use some units for these workers. But actually, Coma's doing a great job of this. He's already killed off a lot of workers with these 3 Hellions, and he's continuing to wreak havoc over here. Even makes it his way over to the natural expansion, just continues to do damage. 22 workers killed. And you have to remember, Coma got such an incredibly delayed natural expansion. Now you can see he's actually 48 SCVs to 37 probes. He's killed so many probes, and he's actually jumped way ahead in that worker count. And NaYa is now thinking, okay, do I go attack? No, I want to retreat back. I need to make sure I wait for my blink to finish up. He wants to wait for his warp gates to finish up for that one final reinforcing warp-in round, as well as even getting up that 3rd Colossus. The 3rd Colossus can play a huge role, especially when you have the +1 weapons. It really helps against units like those Marauders and such that are really just a lot tankier. And if they're getting healed up by those medevacs, you want to be able to kill those off as soon as possible so that your Colossus can start working their way on those juicy Marines that only have 55 health that get taken out very, very quickly by those Colossus. I mean, 15 damage with 2 shots is 30 damage. That means 2 Colossus, you're one-shotting those Marines, and that's what you want to be doing. Those Marines are the big damage dealers for this army composition, but does NaYa actually feel comfortable moving out? He's been suffering a lot of economic damage from those medevac drops, and Coma, as you can see, is actually positioned now with 4 medevacs once again, looking to be in maybe a position where he could drop once again over up into the high ground. In the meanwhile, NaYa just going to try and establish the 3rd expansion. He's kind of been dancing his army between his natural expansion and out over here by this 3rd expansion. And now he's kind of comfortably positioned over here, right between the two, right on that ramp. And Coma gonna spot that out and be like, nope, not going into that, backing the heck out of there. And oh, blink up from NaYa Stalkers does manage to get one of those medevacs very, very low in health, but does not manage to pick it off. Now I want to note that behind this, Coma is again pressing that economic advantage that he has had by picking off all those probes, by getting up that 3rd expansion. But oh, Coma unloading all those Marines and Marauders, actually catching one of NaYa's Stalkers a little bit off guard, and maybe those Stalkers expecting those medevacs to be completely full, but oh, one of the medevacs so low in health. Does not quite manage to get it, but then again, Stalker does manage to survive for a little bit longer before it blinks its way into its own death. A single Marine going to go over here and just scout out and make sure that that 3rd expansion is still being taken, make sure that there's nothing crazy coming out. And it looks like the Marines and Marauders just constantly dancing back and forth with those stims. Now these medevacs have a ton of energy, but look at this, a little bit of a flanking position from NaYa. I'm not sure if this is going to work out too well, though. He's trying to focus right down those medevacs, manages to get 2 of them. A really great pickoff over there from NaYa, but he has to be so careful. The 3rd expansion might be a little bit vulnerable. These Marines and Marauders are so low in health, though. A nice reinforcing warp in from NaYa. It actually does create a little bit of a walling barricade, making it very, very difficult for Coma to actually retreat out that path. He has to lift up and go over to the natural expansion, but he's going to be pretty happy with that, trying to go after as many units as possible. But he does manage to lose 1 more of those medevacs. A great photon armor charge from NaYa, and with that being said, it looks like Coma going to try and get out of here with his final medevac, but those Stalkers, they're hot on the trail, and that medevac is going to run out of that energy, that boosting energy very, very soon, and now he's going to be very vulnerable to these Stalkers. The Stalkers managed to pick it off with a full medevac full of units, and Coma just lost 4 full medevacs worth of units during that giant chase sequence. I almost feel like we should have keyed Yakety Sax, except it wouldn't have been appropriate because those plays were actually pretty sick. We saw kind of mind games going down from both of the players as Coma was trying to bait all those Stalkers, expecting them all to be catching up with the rest of the army. So he kind of unloaded them all over here, managed to pick off 1 Stalker. So then we ended up seeing NaYa have to retreat back, but this Colossus came in and he tried to chase him down a little bit earlier than maybe he could have, and tried to blink up, almost got a medevac, lost a Stalker, all kinds of crazy stuff going on. Flanking positions with Stalkers to try and pick off those medevacs to make sure that those units could not retreat out or just boost their way over the natural expansion. 2 of them managed to get over there. And man, absolutely crazy. But let's look at where we are at the end of all this, as NaYa is going to continue to be a little bit aggressive. He's sitting on +2 armor upgrades and 1+1 weapons upgrade, whereas we have Coma actually sitting on +1/+1, does not have any +2 armor or weapons upgrades on the way, but instead has Ghost coming out, which is going to be very interesting. Now, we did see some High Templars out for NaYa, but I mean, oh, actually, I say that now. I was going to say there aren't that many out, but now we actually see quite a few. 6 High Templars out on the map right now, as well as 4 Colossus. This is going to be very, very annoying for Coma to deal with. Coma definitely has the Viking count that he needs to deal with that Colossus count, as long as he continues to produce a couple more, because it looks like NaYa is still producing those Colossus. But I mean, in terms of upgrades, he's a little bit further behind. He's going to be actually even further behind, as +2 weapons is going to be finishing up for NaYa. And this is honestly one of the matchups where upgrades played the most important role in the matchup. I mean, those Marines just attack so fast, and those Zealots, the Stalkers, etc., however much damage they can soak up is so beneficial, as well as those Colossus. The difference between being able to 1 or 2 or 3 shot those Terran units plays such a huge and vital role. But now we end up seeing Coma starting to poach forward. He does have a pretty scary army of these Vikings. If he wants to make sure that the Colossus count doesn't get too far out of control, this would be a good time to actually hit, but he needs to make sure he gets a good engagement angle. And honestly, right now, he only has these 3 Ghosts, and he has to make sure that he also nails those EMPs, because Psionic Storm is, in fact, finished up. He has quite a bit of energy left around on 6 High Templar. That means he is at least around 12 or 14 storms or something crazy like that. So that is actually a very, very scary prospect right now for Coma to deal with. Yeah, he has around like 13 or 12 or so storms. And if those EMPs aren't absolutely beautiful for Coma, he could be suffering a massive amount of damage, because this is not a very zealot Archon heavy army. Yeah, there's 2 Archons in here, there's a couple of Zealots, but there's a lot of Stalkers in there. And the Stalkers, they're going to be trying to focus fire down those Vikings. The EMPs, yeah, they help out against those Stalkers, but they're not actually super tanky units in the first place anyway. So really, you want to be laying down those EMPs on a lot of those Zealots that are trying to soak up the damage, as well as those Archons. And, you know, I think that he's going to want to save, well, I was going to say he wanted to save those EMPs for the Zealots and Archons, but now he has so many ghosts. It's not the, you know, whatever, a minute or 2 ago where he only had 2 or 3 ghosts. This is now the point where he has 9 ghosts out on the map with a lot of energy. So it's going to be a very energy intensive battle, a very control oriented battle. And this is one of the points in time that I love the most about PvT, where the control is going to be utmost important. And we have the Stalkers blinking forward, trying to pick off as many of those Vikings as possible. The units from Coma stemming back, or at least some of them, no, just the ones that are in the far back point. Because at the same time, we have NaYa dropping with the storms over on the middle line of Coma, managing to pick off a handful of those SCVs, not able to kill off too many of them. It looks like Coma didn't really have full saturation over at this expansion, but still, he manages to get out with those 2 High Templars, and he's going to be in a very comfortable position to just do it once again. Now, Coma is starting to get up that mass command center and orbital command / planetary fortress mode. He has 1 planetary fortress just kind of protecting this 3rd expansion location, as well as 2 orbital commands, another 4th orbital command going up just to add up the mules that he can get. NaYa getting up his own 5th expansion. So this is going into ultra late game power macro mode right now. And NaYa, he's moving in, he's moving across the map, just kind of moving, oh, I should say moving in and moving back. These 2 players do not want to overcommit, because you want to make sure that you get the absolute best engagement possible. Because sometimes, even yes, you can replenish this army as a Protoss player with those Warp Gate units, but you're not going to be able to replenish them with full energy High Templar, with tons of Colossus immediately. It's going to even take time to make those Archons, those power units that Protoss player wants to have, take time to replenish. So you do not want to lose this army, because you could just actually spiral a little bit out of control. But now we end up seeing big storms going down on a lot of those ghosts. EMP has actually managed to go down on a majority of the Stalkers and those Colossus, but it looks like a handful of those High Templars still had a little bit of energy left over. A lot of Archons actually being produced at this point, and the Colossus managed to get taken out, but the Archons are actually still alive and dealing a lot of damage to these Mirages. Mirages trying to kite around these orbital commands. The orbital commands acting as a huge wall in that these Archons are just not prepared to deal with, and they actually manages to chase back NaYa for a little bit. But now we see the reinforcing wave of Zealots. The Zealots are incredibly powerful as long as they have these backing up power units to deal out the damage, while these Zealots tank the damage for the Protoss army. And NaYa, he doesn't have any more Colossus or High Templars left over, so that is a little bit of a concern. He is morphing in a couple, or warping in a couple of those High Templars, but he's making them straight into Archons. God, this is going to be such a scary army. I guess he's identified, and he's taking out a majority of the ghosts, but look at this, 5 ghosts being produced at a time for Coma. This is going to be very annoying for NaYa's army composition. I mean, he has so many Archons. Yeah, they have +3 weapons, but really they only have +1 shields. What is that 10 health going to be useful with those 3 armor upgrades? I mean, yeah, he's going to soak up 1 extra shot. Good job on those Archons. I mean, you've done a great job taking out those shots. They need the shield upgrades to really get that survivability, and they really don't have that against this Marine Marauder force. And especially when you add in those Ghost EMPs, it is going to be very difficult to actually deal with for NaYa. So once again, it's coming down to that control. It looks like the Warp Prism actually just got taken out. Very annoying, as NaYa did have some High Templars in there. He is trying to get additional harassment damage done. This is single Zealot going to scout out that this other expansion has been taken, and honestly, the income for both these players is just going to be absolutely out of control, especially Coma, considering how many of these orbital commands he has. But it looks like for the most part, he's kind of just laying down scans. I don't even know where he's laying down these scans, but I think that he's just trying to, yeah, he's just trying to get a feel for where his opponent's army is, so he can appropriately prepare and position his own army. Because you know what, he needs to defend this this area over here, because he also wants to make sure he doesn't lose any production facilities over in that main base. You can imagine a big Doom move-in from NaYa that just goes over the main base and just immediately recalls out. That could be very annoying. He also wants to protect this expansion, but also this expansion can be very vulnerable. So he wants to get in position to protect it, but those scans have not really identified where that army is, and only now is he really going to see and identify, oh my god, he's down over there by that bottom left end expansion. But it is going to get taken out very, very quickly, as well as a lot of those SCVs. Now, is Koma going to take this as an opportunity to try and put on a little bit of counter pressure, just move in? Oh, he could have almost taken out a free Colossus that was rallying in, but not going to really be able to take advantage of that. He knows that time is of the utmost importance. He needs to get the damage done as fast as possible. He's going to move in over here to this third expansion, I believe. I'm surprised it actually has that many minerals left over. He's going to take out one of the assimilators. He's going to try and focus fire down the Nexus. He should be able to get it, as well as a handful of these probes. A really nice win over there. Both these players reset back to 50 workers, but oh, looks like the Ghost's going to be cloaking up. He realizes this is going to be the big engagement. EMPs are being laid down everywhere on top of those Archons, but where are the scans? The Dark Templars in massive numbers with +3 weapons upgrades, dealing a massive 60 damage to this entire Terran army, and the Colossus reigning supreme from above. It looks like Koma trying to focus fire down the Tempest, but the Vikings not in position to kill off those Colossus. The Archons, they get EMP'd, but it is not quite enough, and NaYa gonna take a fabulous engagement during that situation. Vikings going to be landed over here just to try and do as much damage as possible. As long as this army from NaYa is trying to catch up with them, I mean, he identifies that, hey, it's mostly Archons and Colossus, not exactly the greatest air-chasing army units. But still, that was some devastating losses for Koma. He's going to have to replenish that as soon as possible. And he doesn't really have that much of a mineral bank right now. You can see that it's kind of hard-pressed for minerals. He has a good amount of gas, so he can produce a lot of these ghosts. I mean, he's already gotten out quite a few ghosts, but I mean, yeah, the ghosts are going to be helpful to deal with those Archons, but again, you saw in that last engagement, he EMP'd the hell out of those Archons, and then he just didn't have any units to kill them off. It's a pretty frustrating position, I imagine, for Koma, where you have all these late-game power-teching units, but you really just need the rest of the units, the Marines and the Marauders, to actually take out those Archons and tank up the damage from those ults. The ghosts really aren't that tanky of units, and EMP helps. But at the end of the day, if your opponent has an observer, the cloak, that's really their main way of actually being able to survive those engagements, and it just did not work out for Koma. So how does Koma replenish this army? He, again, has the ghost, but he needs to get out more than just ghosts. He needs to get out some units that can survive and kill off those Archons as soon as they have lost their shields, and also be able to kill off those Zealots that are going to be tanking the damage for those Archons during those big engagements. I mean, when you have a massive armies that are basically maxed out, you can't really afford to focus fire down individual Archons with pieces and chunks of your army. But now we end up seeing Ghosts trying to go in over here. They cloak up, but the Observer is around. These Ghosts are getting absolutely massacred. The Colossus is going to be able to charge in as well. The Ghosts actually do manage to pick off with a nice little scan. The Vikings also managed to pick off one of the Observers, and it looks like NaYa, amazingly enough, going to have to back up, but a single DT killing off this expansion over here. This expansion running very, very dry, at least in terms of workers, as we were down to just 32 workers. This expansion completely dried up. Koma just does not have the economy anymore to reproduce his army. He is sitting 107 supply versus 170 supply. It is a massive, massive difference right now, and NaYa is even doing all the great things in the late game, getting up that War Prism just to continue to put on the pressure, leaving Dark Templar at all these expansions to make sure his opponent does not grab another expansion. Oh my god, oh no! Koma losing one of his orbital commands, even well after dropping down the mule to try and repair. And, God, he's trying to scan this army, make sure that he knows where it is so he can reestablish another expansion. But no, he taps out. GG gets called. And Complexity Gaming's Koma gonna tap out to Prometheus Gaming's NaYa in the awesome game of the week. So, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. That was an absolutely fantastic Protoss versus Terran that we just witnessed over here, with some great play from both these players. I mean, Protoss versus Terran in the late game, one of my favorite things to watch, because it is so control-oriented. The engagement angle matters. How you control your Stalkers versus the Ghosts that are trying to get the EMPs versus the High Templars that are trying to avoid the EMPs and get off the Storms versus the Vikings that are trying to avoid the Storms as well and trying to kill off the Colossus, which are trying to kill off the Ghosts, and the Marines and the Marauders, which are trying to avoid blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. So much fun to watch. But guys, thank you so much again. Please be sure to follow Prometheus Gaming's NaYa. I have provided links over in the Twitch chat as well as down below the YouTube video, depending on where you're watching this. But we're going to be jumping into the next segment, the analysis segment. If you guys enjoyed this game from NaYa and how he played out the series, be sure to stick around and you'll get to hear a little bit of NaYa's thoughts on his games from yesterday. The 3 games, the PvZ, the PvT, and the PvP, including a PvT from Young that was absolutely insanely awesome. So if you love PvT, be sure to stick around for that. We'll get NaYa's thoughts on those games and kind of get a little bit more information on how to play StarCraft. It's always a good learning experience. But don't go anywhere, guys. We will be right back. If you're watching this on YouTube, just go find the Awesome Day video, and we'll see you there.